Welcome back, everyone, to the coverage of the YCS Bologna 2024. And I'm joined by Alberto Marazzi. We're going to give you a brief overview over the meta of the 2011 Time Wizard format. And there is one deck that completely sticks out to everybody, the Tengu plant version.
Hi guys, everyone, and welcome back. Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of the deck, actually, especially because I've been playing it lately. Funnily enough, I had the chance to play with Marcello and Stefano Memoli at 3 vs 3 not a long time ago, and we were actually playing the tournament. It was going incredibly well, and I think you might have heard the story yesterday at dinner. And I'm playing against this guy. We've played, I think, quite a few times, and we were in the top 4. And he's playing Hero Bit. So my hand doesn't look so good, but I said a monster, passed. So I said, it's okay, I can survive, you know? He goes Stratos, Search, Attack. And I flipped what I thought it was the Spirit Reaper. And I flipped the monster, and it is a Lone Fire Blossom. Marcello looks at me because he was in the center. And he didn't say a word because I think he didn't know what to say.
His eyes said enough.
You know, and it was like, why? You know? So I don't know what happened, but I think that was the right moment for me to get some sleep. And
so you won the tournament, right? Or did you get your team eliminated?
Funnily enough, we arrived to the top 4 without dropping a single game. And in top 4, we lost all of our matches.
Okay, so it wasn't even completely your fault. But what is like the reason why you played the Tengu plant deck? What is the strategy behind this powerful deck, so meta determining?
On one hand, I have very good memories of the deck because back then in 2011 I was 16, and I also remember how I struggled with finding the tour guides. I remember showing up at my local shop with my friends. It was impossible. The internet, of course, existed, but it was not so popular to find cards, online. And you really had to go to your card shop with friends, open up booster packs, talk to that guy. And I also remember that the sneak peek, I opened up a tour guide. But I was 16. I still, was struggling with the game, and I traded the card. Can you imagine? And I remember back then the deck was popular, and I really liked the interaction with, the Tengu itself.
Yeah.
And I think seeing it nowadays, when you look back at the older formats, you look them with different eyes. You know what I mean? And also, I think there was a transition period in which there was the Forbidden Limited list, and there was a card that was forbidden and got limited, which was the Black Luster Soul, the Envy of the Beginning, which is one of my favorite cards ever. And I remember the hype about the card,
And it was justified.
So, and the deck, although there were a lot of cards that were limited, like the Formula Synchron, the Trishula, the Librarian, the Lone Fire, the Debris Dragon, the deck works so well.
It kind of gave you the vibe of something that you call good stuff in Yu-Gi-Oh! That you call. You just play a bunch of good cards. Funnily enough, some of them are plants, like
exactly.
the Lone Fire and the Engine, the Dandelion. And there's also some lights and darks. Effect Veiler was a thing, Caius, the Shadow Monarch, some extra deck monsters. And then at some point you can drop the Black Luster Soldier.
Exactly.
And another deck that profited from Black Luster Soldier or other boss monsters as well was TG Agents, or actually not TG Agents. That was also a hybrid build, but
exactly.
I topped my first regional ever with Agents, and that was because I got a Trishula from my football club friend who gave it to me because he had it from his brother. And I just got his Trishula. I trished so many people in that tournament.
You have stories as well.
It was amazing. The card was not in the best condition, let me tell you. His little brother was probably quite young. But it was still a Trishula that can banish a monster or a card from the field, from the graveyard, and from the hand.
Trishula hit the field. That was, I think, one of the most scariest cards of the entire format.
Yeah.
You really wanted to avoid to get Trishula, so you really had to be careful, how the cards on your graveyard. And I think, speaking of Agents, I remember that it was one of those decks which I think it was 25 to 30 monsters, just handfuls of spells, and maybe there was the Trap Dasher and the Treacherous Trapple, and that was it.
There was even a Monster Mash version of the deck where you played Rallis or Gallus. and maybe a Pot of Avarice or one of the power spells like Monster Reborn or Dark Hole and Heavy Storm. But most of them were just monsters you would go into big combo plays. And of course, this was basically Boss Monster Turbo.
Yeah.
You had the Hyperion, you had the Archlord Christia that got semi-limited. You had Dark Armed Dragon, if you will. You had Gords, the Emissary of Darkness, Tragodia. So many good cards that can just win you the game on the spot.
And there was I remember the deck was insanely good because it could afford to play either Animate Controller or the Creature Swap. And you know, with the Venus, and when you basically make the light, it was like almost game. And I think though, the deck, although it was insanely good, I'm thinking about the side deck. There was a card specifically which could shut down entirely the strategy of the deck. Which
Consecrated Light.
On one hand, there was, but I was also thinking about the Leeching the Light. You remember the spell? Basically, the spell says, there was this incredible spell that says, basically give your monsters attack equal to the monsters of your opponent's side of the field, which were light. So like, for example, you start with the Venus, and then you have like, for example, the Gachi Gachi, right? So you are protected, and you summon like a handful of monsters, and when you activated the spell, basically, like for example, the Tengu becomes a 3700.
That's a lot.
You know, and that's a lot.
Yeah.
You know, but I think back then the deck I was the most scared of was the TG stun deck. Let's say.
You were talking about Creature Swap earlier, but the TG strategy actually had a trap card, the TG1 EM1.
Yeah.
And that basically was Creature Swap on your opponent's turn, and you give them TGs. So TGs, when they get destroyed in the end phase, you can get another TG from your deck to your hand. So they always go +1 if you destroy them on the opponent's side of the field. And yeah, you played some cards like, you might have heard of it, Skill Drain.
Yeah, I think so. I think they heard of it. No, and especially I think like the deck was super scared because of course you could afford to play the Reborn Tengu. And alongside that, when you enter the battle phase, there was a card which to me was incredibly good, which was the Horde, which basically boosts your monster. When you destroy another one, you get to draw a card, which was incredibly good. And
it was also like, when your opponent attacks you and you flip it, then you get a draw for free, they waste their battle phase. Oh, I mean, Bellissima.
Yeah, you can say it was Bellissima. And I think also, like, there was one of the cards you don't really want to see in your opponent's hand, because, like, every single turn, every single time a TG monster gets to the graveyard, he gets to search another one, and then he comes back. So it was not only the Reborn Tengu that, you know, like, triggered the deck. But also, like, there was one deck I play against at this tournament, which was the Gravekeeper. Guys, let me tell you, I think the Gravekeeper deck is scary. Like, he has the Gravekeeper Spy, which I think is one of the best monster ever of this format, because you know, 2000
in the history of the game, even it was good in basically every single format.
Incredible, and he had a lot of like Royal Tribute. Do you want to talk about it? Like,
have you ever been Royal Tributed on a full hand of monsters? And sometimes when you're saying, hey, if I play a deck full of monsters, then my graveyard is a resource, it's not. When you get Royal Tributed, you got Necro Valleyed as well.
I mean,
and that still happens today. I think Federico Mecozzi a few years back topped with a Pendulum deck that specifically was there to search out Necro Valley.
Yeah, I mean, like, because in the meta game there was Tearlaments playing with the graveyard. Can you imagine? And then the funny thing was that he could search the Necro Valley with his deck. So he had easy access, and I remember he lost into top 16 against Flow Underrays. So
yeah, the Necro Valley doesn't help there at all. But the Gravekeeper strategy was really, really powerful. Pot of Duality just added so much to the deck. You didn't need to special summon every turn. Basically, you only special summoned with Spy, and that one you will set before. Yeah. There were so many other great cards, like the Recruiter, that was incredibly powerful. And also Necro Valley gave your monsters 500 attack and defense points, and that was very relevant. Yeah,
and imagine also, like, in a meta game like this, you had 3 Mystical Space Typhoon, that is true, but you had to draw them. Yeah. Because, like, if Necro Valley is on the field, for example, I was the one playing Tengu Plant. If I don't draw Mystical Space Typhoon, for me it's over.
And if you got Royal Tributed before, then the damage is done already. And the deck had incredible recovery, because you can actually access your own graveyard if you have Gravekeeper's Steel. That only gives you back 2 monsters, which is incredible. Yeah. But there were also, like, other rogue decks in the format. The Fabled Chaos is a more new approach to a Chaos deck that has seen play lately, but also the Scrap deck is also made of some floaters. Scrap Dragon was such a cool card coming out in Duelist Revolution.
Yeah, Scrap Dragon, I remember also, like, it was one of these accessible level 8, and then you get to destroy one card of your side of the field, trigger the one, and then destroys another one of your opponent's side of the field. And
very generic as well. Destroy your own Tengu.
I mean, can you imagine? Like, I mean, there were a lot of cool interactions, and of course, like, there was also Pot of Avarice, which, you know, like with Tengu itself, like, you keep recycling them and going and over. And I also feel like, looking at the format back then now, there was, you know, this dichotomy between the Maxi and Veiler. Because, like, you see a lot of deck lists now, for example, Maxi was playing in the side deck, or maybe you had one in the main deck, let's say. Because it was either a choice. I enter into the tournament, and what do I want to have in the main deck? Like 2 Maxi, 2 Veiler, 2 Mystical Space Typhoon, or do I want to have 3 Mystical Space Typhoon because I don't want to lose to Rock decks? And I think when you look back at this like older formats, you also put in these shoes now, saying, nowadays, what would I do? Like, would I prefer not to lose, you know, to a Rock deck?
Maxi.
Or, you know, done.
Go hard, Maxi.
Just in case.
Yeah, this is just the best card in the format for me. But it was a card that has a lot of value, so you have to be actually smart about it. So if your opponent starts with a tour guide, there is a special summon, you will get a guaranteed draw, but do you really want to throw your Maxi to that? Because then they're just going to special summon out their Sangan and they're going to be fine with the 1-for-1 trade. You rather want to wait for those crucial moments, so I really like the card in that format. Yeah, the card, I think there was one single card on top of my mind, which was the Debunk, if you remember about it. It was one of those. I mean, it was the counter trap, and it was great because basically, like, you could set it and then wait for the right moment when your opponent drops the Maxi or the Veiler. And I also think about the side patterns back then were very interesting because, for example, in the Tengu plan, you were not playing a lot of trap cards in your main deck. You could play the Solemn Judgment, for example, the Mirror Force, the Warnings, but you were basically siding in the Bologna Strapo for matchups against the Gravekeepers, Hero Beat, for example, the Tigistan, and also a card that I'm thinking of was really good was the Mind Crush. Because like if you're looking at it now, of course maybe it's a bit weak, but back then I think you had full knowledge of because like with Pot of Duality, with all the cards that have been surged out, of course there was a Thunder King Rayo, we haven't talked about it. True. How powerful that was. Yeah, that was really good in the Hero Beat as well, because Hero received the Shining. It looks a lot like the deck from 2010 Time Wizard still, but you have the Shining in the extra deck, and that changes everything. You can run the Ryo in the main deck, which is already a powerful monster. It runs over Sang, it feels great to have that, and also recycles your resources so well. So I think there is plenty of decks in the 2011 format that you can play, and that you will want to play, because the format is just absolutely amazing. But I think that we gave you a little nice overview over the 2011 Time Wizard format, and we'll go back to the live coverage of the YCS Bologna 2024. Take care.